Joining me now on the Fly the W podcast, I'm happy to have on Chandler Rome. He is the beat writer for the Houston Astros. Chandler, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. We were talking a little bit off air, and you guys just had your fan festival, a little bit different than Cubs Con, but probably still fun to kind of go and be a part of.
Yeah, I think it's more fun for the fans. But yeah, it's nice to catch up with some of the players, and it's kind of that signal that spring training is just around the corner. It was kind of weird this year. The Astros didn't have a ton of their big names there. Jose Altuve came, but Jordan Alvarez had a conflict, and so they didn't have some of their big names there. Kyle Tucker wasn't there, oddly, nor was Ryan Presley. So they were missed. A lot of familiar faces were missing, but got some good stuff out of it. I'm sure you saw a lot of the stuff that went on with, Jose Altuve talking about Alex Bregman, things like that. So a little more subdued, not near as raucous as Cubs Con seems to be, but still fun for the fans that went out there, I think.
Now, obviously, Dana Brown and Jed Hoyer have become quick friends, and that all seemed, I just started hearing so much about it around the winter meetings, right when they were starting to talk about Kyle Tucker. Now, how surprised were you that it really didn't seem like negotiations were happening with Kyle for an extension?
With the Astros or with the Cubs?
With the Astros.
Oh, they're not surprising at all. There was a couple things. I mean, this is a franchise that the Astros, the longest and most lucrative deal they've ever given a player is Jose Altuve got a 7-year, $151 million contract extension a couple of years ago. That's the biggest deal in franchise history. Like, they were never going to even approach what Kyle Tucker was going to ask for in an extension. So they really kind of blew their time to do it. They extended Jordan Alvarez during the 2022 season, got him on a 6-year, $100 million extension, which is a 6-year, $115 million, excuse me. Probably one of the biggest bargains in baseball right now. They actually approached Kyle Tucker at the same time, and Tucker told him no. And I believe they took him to an arbitration hearing the next year. And those things never engender good feelings afterward. And I'm not saying that there was bad blood or anything, but just it never really seemed like it was going to be a long-term thing here. And then I don't know how much you've looked at kind of what happened with his injury last year. The Astros refusing to call it a fracture when it was a fracture. Kyle Tucker had to literally come out and say, yes, I fractured my shin, and that's the reason I've been out for 3 months. The Astros kept calling it a bruise. I'm here to tell you that there was some hurt feelings in that whole situation because it made Tucker look soft to an extent. So I'm not saying that there was like acrimony and that they didn't like each other, but it was just an extension was never going to happen here. Just with how they run the franchise, Jim Crane, the owner, his business model, it's worked for them. I mean, they've gone to the ALCS 7 of the past 8 years. Like, it's worked, but they're just never going to go into hell. I'd be surprised if they ever give a player $200 million, much less the 300, 400, $500 million that Kyle Tucker is going to get as a free agent.
So for Cub fans who haven't been paying attention to the AL Central and postseason, we got some people that are just more NL centric. What can Cub fans expect from Kyle Tucker, and why is he going to get that big chunk of change?
He's a 5-tool player in every sense of the word. Should have had a 30-30 season 2 years ago. Had a really kind of controversial inside the park home run that was overturned to a triple on the last day of the season that would have given him 30-30. Was well on his way to a 30-30 season last year before he fouled the ball off his shin and fractured his shin. The thing I think Cubs fans will be interested to see is it's not real flashy. Like, there's no one tool that you look at him and it's like, oh man, like visibly that is like aesthetically pleasing. He just makes everything look really easy. His defense in right field is a Gold Glove winner in right field. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he steals all his bases kind of on instinct. Like, just he knows when to go. He's a really smart, instinctual player. The swing is a really smooth swing from the left side, has power, can hit for average. I mean, he's got it all. He is a 5-tool player, can do everything right on the baseball field. Certainly not the flashiest guy in the world. You're not going to see him showboat. You're not going to see him bat flip. You're not really going to see him show much emotion. He is very even-keeled, very kind of, he just comes to the ballpark and plays. That's just kind of what he does. He's not a big showman. You're not. I would be stunned if he is. I think they'll put him on billboards, but I'd be stunned if he's the guy that's going to be, the spokesman for, the big Cubs TV ads, things like that. That's just not his style. He kind of stays out of the spotlight. So that's kind of what I'm fascinated to see is as the kind of centerpiece of the Cubs offseason, kind of how he's going to handle being the face of the team. And I don't know necessarily that it's fair to call him the face of the team when you have Dansby Swanson and you have Shota and you have, guys that have been there longer and have done more. But given what they've done this offseason, I mean, he is their marquee guy this offseason. It'll be interesting to see how he handles that.
Now, I got to tell you, the big news that you were all over this entire weekend was Ryan Pressly coming to Chicago. And all of a sudden, when the first report started coming, it was like, well, wait a sec, doesn't he have a no trade clause? And then for Cub fans, kind of waiting this whole weekend to see if he was going to waive it or not. It looked like it was a 3-team race to try to get him to waive that no trade clause.
No, it really wasn't. It honestly, like if you want to peel back the curtain a little bit, there was just a lot of procedural stuff they had to get done, a lot of I's to dot, T's to cross, things like that. This was not a situation where he was like seriously debating or anything. It took a while because there was just some procedural paperwork to finish. It was always going to be the Cubs. The Tigers had an offer in. There was a West Coast team that wanted him as well. But Ryan he's a native Texan. He's not from Houston. He's from Dallas, but his wife is from Houston. Both of his kids were born in Houston. He has roots here, and he really, really likes the city. He likes living here. So that was going to be the biggest holdup was he going to stay here just for comfort, just for his family? Obviously, his kids have only ever lived here and things like that. So, but once it became clear that the Cubs were going to, give him the closer role and the Cubs are in a maybe positioned a little bit better to win this year than the Astros. I'm not saying that the Astros are going to tank or anything, but I think the Cubs, you kind of look and they're positioned pretty well, maybe a little better than the Astros. So, and there were still some lingering hurt feelings is the wrong word, but just some discontent about how last year went down with them bringing Hader in and demoting Ryan Pressly really for nothing he did wrong. They just wanted to build a three-headed monster at the back end of their bullpen, and they brought Hader in, and that was tough. That was tough on Pressly, and that'd be tough for anybody. Like if you get demoted for doing nothing wrong, then that can be tough. And I think Pressly gave a lot to the Astros organization. He gave a lot to the city. He gave a lot to the, this golden era, and kind of rubbed him the wrong way. So I think that had a little bit to do with it too. But it was never a situation where he was like deep in debate as to do I waive it or do I not. I think it was always going to happen. It just took a little longer because of some procedural stuff.
Now, obviously, this is not Ryan's fault, but a lot of Cub fans are just like, oh boy, I'm really hoping that this is not Hector Neris version 2.0, because I'm gonna tell you, Chandler, that was a disaster. And when we got Hector last year, when the Cubs got Hector, it was almost like, okay, this guy, look at the ERA, and I know sometimes you look deeper in the peripherals and some of that stuff, and so obviously there's a little concern, a dip in velocity for Pressly with the fastball, but it seems like he's a guy who can, knows how to pitch, has a lot of good secondaries, and would be a really, really good closer for any team.
Yeah, the thing I'd push back on, the difference I would have, I think, with Neris and who I cover, I love Hector Neris, one of my favorite players I've ever covered. The difference between Neris and Pressly, I think, is Pressly has substantial closing experience. That's not something Hector Neris had. He did it a little bit in Philly, but he never closed for the Astros. He would close like on certain days when Pressly was down or they didn't have guys to pitch. Like he'd be kind of the substitute closer, but he did not have a ton of closing experience when he went to Chicago. And that's not something you can really quantify, like how much that matters. But I think Ryan Pressly, he's going to go in there. Ryan Pressly has been in every sort of pressure situation you can think of. He threw 45 postseason innings for the Astros, got the final out of the 2022 World Series. He's seen it all. Like nothing's going to phase him in terms of pressure, in terms of stakes, in terms of anything like that. Do I think he's the elite reliever that he was in 2019, 2021? Probably not, but I don't think he's as bad as I think some people are trying to paint him as. He had a 1.14 ERA plus last year. League average is 100. He had a 3.10 FIP to go with a 3.49 ERA, which shows that there was some bad luck. You look at his batted ball luck, and he had horrible batted ball luck. But one way you avoid poor batted ball luck is you miss bats, and he did not miss bats a ton. He did not miss bats at the rate last year that he has missed bats in the past. So maybe the Cubs can unlock something on him. I still think he's a good reliever. I still think he can close for a contending team. I don't think this is a situation where they're going to get, a guy on the steep decline. Now he's 35 years old, and relievers are the most volatile group of players in baseball. So you never know, but I think this one's going to age a little bit better than Hector Neris did.
That was rough. And one of the things that I saw from the convention down in Houston is Jose Altuve say, "Hey, we'll do whatever it takes to keep Alex Bregman here. I'll change positions." And but I've Alex Bregman has been mentioned with the Cubs now. With I don't know how much more money the Cubs have left. They're kind of in the same boat as Houston, is not wanting to go over that first tier luxury tax. But what are you hearing as far as Alex Bregman is concerned? Is there still a possibility that the Cubs may be in on that?
Yeah, I mean, from everything I understand, there's 5 teams in on him right now, and that's the Cubs, the Red Sox, the Astros, the Blue Jays, and the Detroit Tigers. And I can tell you what the Astros offer is, because they leaked it in November. It's 6 years and $156 million. I can't tell you what the other teams have. I also can tell you that there was a Scott Boras client a month ago that signed with a team that no one had linked him to all offseason. That was Corbin Burns with the D-backs. So there's always that case that could happen, that there is a mystery team that we don't know about that just swoops in and gets it done. So, those 5 teams are in. Looking from the outside looking in, I don't know why the Cubs wouldn't be more aggressive on him, because he is exactly what they need. I mean, you talk about, he elevates any clubhouse he walks into with his leadership. I mean, we could do an hour-long podcast right now about just the leader he is and how players, young, old, experienced pitchers, non-pitchers, Latin players, American players, they just gravitate to him. And he's such a baseball savant. He's not the 40 home run hitter he was in 2019. The power is probably that power is probably never coming back. The WAR he puts up, I've said this phrase all offseason. The WAR he puts up is dirty WAR. And it's not the WAR that the fans are going to get excited about, but he posts every day. He's going to walk. He's going to swing at strikes. He's not going to swing at balls. He's going to put the ball in play. He was just the Gold Glove winner at third base. He's an elite defender. So all those kind of little things that you never really think about, like, he is elite at them. And he's got a history of slow starts in the regular season. And last year was probably the worst start he's ever had. Kind of climax in Chicago, actually, at Wrigley Field. Just had an awful series, and they dropped to 7-19 when they were down there, and it was not good. But he rebounded, was one of the best third basemen in baseball for the last 4 months of the year. I don't know if that's holding his market up, just the fact that he started out so bad. But look, I think any team on the cusp of contention, or any team that fancies itself a contender, that needs someone to come in their clubhouse and be the guy, be the leader, be the guy around which every player, or to whom every player looks, they need, like, Alex Bregman's that guy. He is it 100%. And I think the Cubs could do a lot worse than signing Alex Bregman.
Well, you sold me. Now I'm obviously the Tucker trade, something comes back. How excited are the fans about Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wesneski, and of course Cam Smith?
I think Cam Smith is the guy that really, really is intriguing a lot of Astros fans and people in the organization. To show you how bad the Astros farm system was, I believe Cam Smith was like the 7th or 8th best prospect in the Cubs system. He is now, hands down, unquestionably, unanimously, the number 1 prospect in the Astros farm system. He is their best prospect without a shadow of a doubt. He is kind of that, you look at him and you can kind of see that, they have Altuve till 2029, Yordan Alvarez till 2028. Kind of look at Cam Smith and like, this may be one that he may be the 3rd guy. maybe the third guy that's the next face of the next core of the Astros. So he'll be in big league camp in 2 weeks. That'll be fun to see. You know, I'd be stunned if he plays in the big leagues this year, just his first full professional season, but who knows? But he's the one that excites a lot of people. But, you know, Isaac Paredes, obviously, I think you've probably seen the spray chart of all his home runs. The Astros think he's going to hit a ton of home runs at Dyken Park just with his pull side power. And then Hayden Wesneski, you know, it's fun. It's a local kid coming home, grew up in Houston, grew up an Astros fan. He'll open the season in their rotation because they've got a couple guys that won't be ready for the start of the year. He's going to open the season as their fifth starter. And, you know, I would never doubt the Astros pitching infrastructure. They always seem to find a way to make pitchers better, to make kind of average to below average pitchers elite. You saw it with Yusei Kikuchi after they got him from the Blue Jays last year at the deadline. They've done it with countless pitchers. So be interesting to see when we get to spring training what the pitching coaches focus on with Hayden Wesneski to get him maybe getting some better results.
It's going to be fun, and it's going to be fun when the Cubs head down to Houston to play the Astros. And unfortunately, I can't make it, but boy, you know, I remember a lot of those when Houston was in the NL Central, and boy, oh boy, those Killer Bees were something. And it was a pretty fun rivalry to have back in the day. So I always, you know, it always makes me think a little bit. So it should be fun. You guys are going to have Chicago invading down in Texas, and it'll be a blast. Yeah,
and we get to see Jim DeShays.
JD.
Get to see JD, so that's always good to see him and get to catch up with him. But yeah, I mean, and look, there's a lot of carryover between these two teams now. We're gonna have 2 tribute videos that series with Tucker and Presley. They may stagger them. Who knows? Maybe we'll have 3. Maybe if Bregman signs there, they'll just have a trifecta of tribute videos when the Cubs come to Dyken Park.
Well, that sounds like fun, Chandler. Where can our listeners find your work, and where can they follow you on the socials?
Yeah, on all socials, I'm Chandler_Rome, and then at The Athletic, you know, writing at The Athletic. Please, you know, loved this weekend getting to work with Sahadev and Patrick Mooney. I hope you guys read them a ton. They're the best at what they do. I like to think I'm okay. So anything you need with Astros, anything you need with Cubs, come to The Athletic. We got you covered.
Like I said, I PJ, Patrick and Sahadev are just, 2 of the best, and The Athletic has just amazing coverage. That's why I subscribe, and everyone else should too. But thank you so much for jumping on, and we'll talk to you maybe in June, right?
Yep, for sure. Thanks.